Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming your way for a movie review that I never really intended on seeing, but since my mom got Hulu so she could watch Only Murders in the Building, I was able to see this movie for no additional cost on Hulu. Incidentally, if you haven't seen Only Murders in the Building, I'd highly recommend the first season. Not so sure it's very not amazingly great after the first season per se, but the first season of Only Murders in the Building is fun. Me growing up with Steve Martin and Martin Short, it's a really kind of fun show, or at least the first season is. So watched all the seasons at this time. There was 3 seasons. I think they're gonna put out season 4 soon or whatever, but watched them all with my mom over the course of weeks, and kind of fun, or at least the first season of that show. But anyway, I was very excited to be able to see this for free on Hulu. I'm not a big fan of the Omen movies. This might actually be, I don't think I've seen them all, but I've seen, I think, the majority of them. Beth got like a DVD collection years ago, and we watched, I think, the first 3 or 4 or something, and never really the biggest Omen fan. And honestly, this might be my favorite one out of all of them, for reasons, or all the ones I've seen for reasons I'll get into in the review. But just like with not being a huge fan of Omen movies, I'm not the biggest fan of supernatural movies in general. Being a non or anti-religious individual, I kind of almost get nauseous when I see, like priests and like inside of a church, or inside of the Vatican, or inside of like all this kind of Catholic, or religious, whatever paraphernalia and just settings and all this kind of stuff. So it almost makes me, I think I've talked about this before, like the scariest, for like these religious kind of supernatural religion horror movies, like the scariest thing is just like the priest standing there, in my opinion. But yeah, not being maybe that's why I like, well, no, I don't think so. I was gonna say maybe that's why I like this movie, because I don't like any of the other Omen movies. But I didn't really expect much going in, because let's face it, it's 2024, I think, when this movie came out, and I don't expect much from movies in 2024, especially horror movies. But one thing that was encouraging is the fact that it's rated R versus PG-13, like so many other horror movies are. And honestly, like the beginning of the movie, I'm not going to spoil any of this, it'll keep the review shorter and stuff, but the beginning was actually kind of cool. Is that Charles Dance? That guy I first really saw, I think, in Alien 3, and I always thought I really liked him in Alien 3, and I always kind of liked him as an actor ever since Alien 3, so it was really cool to see Charles Dance. Unfortunately, he's just at the very beginning, so it would have been cool if he would have been in the movie more. But I think I can say, without spoiling too much, that there's like a kind of an Omen-ish like incident at the very beginning of the movie that is done relatively well. Like if you know anything about the Omen movies, like their shtick is, like that one person who might have had something around their neck and might have jumped off something and might have got hung, and in the first Omen movie or whatever. And so there's a little bit of that like shtick in this movie, and I'll try not to ruin too much of it. But yeah, the beginning begins with a little bit of that Omen shtick, which was fun. And I guess like CG gore, I guess I can simply say. It's just like kind of makes you roll your eyes, but whatever. And we get introduced. So this takes place in the early 70s, and we get introduced to the. I wasn't exactly sure, how they were going to do this, or I was really surprised, because the first one came out like in the mid 70s. So I'm like, they only go a few years back for the first Omen, like whatever. But it just follows the. And forgive me, I don't necessarily claim to get all the information on it for one viewing. I've only seen this once, but I do plan on picking up the Blu-ray if I can find it down the road. For a relatively decent price, way down the road or whatever. But I was actually impressed more or less with this movie, for reasons hopefully I'll remember to get into as the review unfolds. But it takes place in the early 70s, when you find this young woman who incidentally has got a weird name, and I'm a heterosexual guy, I like women, and she's a cute young woman, and she's going off. I just go like this when luckily it's all fake in this case, but this beautiful young girl is going off to be a nun in Rome. She's going off to Rome. I can only assume this movie was actually filmed in Italy, in Rome. So that was, if that's the case, that was really cool. I hope it's not all green screen, but the movie, like this chick who's like the main star or whatever is like almost in every, if not every scene close to it. And I gotta say, if you're a hetero guy who appreciates female beauty, she's really cute and fun to spend the movie with or whatever. And I think at the beginning of the movie, I think I've seen or seen this guy. I heard his voice. This other guy who's like I don't know what the hell nationality he is, but he's got that like super deep voice. Is he a priest as well? He might be a priest. That guy. I think the casting is really good in this movie, and that guy was good for his part and whatever he did. And that's it helps not the that it helps make it not a spoiler review, the fact that I can't remember half of it, but I don't want to spoil stuff anyway. So but this woman, this beautiful young girl, is going off to Rome to become a nun, I guess. That's what you do or whatever. And then she ends up meeting this there's like a roommate with this other attractive chick who like at night goes out and parties and stuff. She's like, I might as well do it now before I can't do it anymore. I can't remember what the hell nationality, if she was Italian or whatever, but this is if you've seen Rosemary's Baby, this is very similar to Rosemary's Baby in a good way. I mean, it borrows from Rosemary's Baby. It's like if you're gonna do a Omen movie, it's like frickin' basically a Rosemary's Baby Omen movie. That's what this movie is. But the thing that I actually really like about it is unlike so many horror movies these days, they just have like, yes, there are jump scares in this movie, of course, but they're almost kind of fun in a way, if that's can be a thing, like actual fun jump scares that don't make you want to roll your eyes or whatever. But horror movies are so basically hit and mostly miss these days, 21st century, frickin' 2020s. And it's really fun to actually see one that's actually frickin' rated R, and it kind of reminded me to a certain extent of like Exorcist 3. I'm a big fan of Exorcist 3. It's probably my favorite Exorcist movie. I like the first one and Exorcist 3, but I'm not going to say it's as great as Exorcist 3, but it kind of reminded me of like stylistically of Exorcist 3, and I really responded to that. I'm like, the kind of Stanley Kubrickian, like just really scary, abstract, just music. Like, I gotta watch this again actually on Hulu probably, but I actually was going to watch it again before I did the review, but I did the Perfect Weapon review, and I'm just like, it's the same day, there's still light. I figure, just do the First Omen now. Since I'm already frickin' set up and there's still some light and stuff. So I figure, we'll just do the First Omen review now. But I can remember enough to, do a video to be more or less entertaining. Like I said, I don't want to spoil the movie anyway, so. But the thing I was mainly impressed by was just like the overall, like, kind of, Exorcist 3-ish way this movie presents itself, and the really abstract, scary music. And there's some images in this movie that I had to be like this, mostly with there's like a childbirth scene or whatever the hell it was. And obviously this movie is about like the woman who would end up giving birth to Damien. It's about the origin story of, I guess, Damien's mother, if you will. And that's all I'll say, and I guess I can simply say there's like a twist, I guess. Well, maybe that's a little bit spoiling it. I'll just say it's an origin story about Damien's mother. And of course, just like so many movies going on now, it's, the woman is front and center. But this is actually that's another thing I thought about, is just like, obviously we know who owns Fox. And this is a movie, with the D company owns Fox, and of course it's a woman-centered movie. But I mean, I think it's just because it's woman-centered doesn't mean it has to be bad. Even in this woman-centered movie era, woman-centered movie and TV era. But I think that this is, and I talked about this in another video I did recently, or a review for another recent movie, that you can't just, shoot down all of the woman-centered movies just because they're coming out in this era. Like, if they're good, which I think this one is more or less, we can let it slide, because this one actually has a reason. If they're going to do a movie about Damien's mother, well, they're not gonna. Well, I could say that, but I don't want to get in trouble. But anyway, it's gonna have a woman in it, so we can let it pass. And we can't dog on every single movie that comes out now that's got a woman as the main character or whatever. But to make a long review not so long, I'll just simply say that I was more or less impressed with this movie, and I thought there was a lot, kind of visual aspects to this movie that reminded me of the 70s, reminded me of Rosemary's Baby, reminded me of Exorcist 3. Very strong in the visual department, like, not only just use of framing and, static shots, but shadow, light, light manipulation, and the creepy ass music was absolutely spot on, perfect. And yeah, I was never a big fan of the Omen movies per se, and this might be actually, believe it or not, the Omen movie that came out in 2024, the era of movies being mostly crap, might be my favorite Omen movie. I mean, it doesn't hurt that the main character is young and cute and you like looking at her or whatever, but yeah, it's obviously, like I say, it does a lot. It does at least three, maybe three of like the kind of cliched Omen things, and I won't ruin the other two, but kind of ruin the first one. But yeah, of course, you got to hit them Omen beats, the kind of things that the Omen movies are famous for. At least the first one. I can't really remember any of the Omen movies past the original, because I've seen the original, I think, more than once, and everything else, all the other Omen movies I only saw once. But I can go as high as Jesus. It's hard to, well, let's see here. I can go as high as, you know what, we'll go, it's hard to, like, when the movie was over, I was just like, and it's interesting how it sets up the sequel. Like, is it going to be the first Omen Part 2? Kind of interesting that it did, I mean, all movies do it, where it's kind of like sequel set up. So is it going to be like a trilogy, kind of like there was supposed to be with the Alien, Prometheus, and it's supposed to be like three movies that led up to Alien or whatever. Are they going to do the trilogy of the First Omen Part 2? The First Omen Part 3, it's confusing, like Rambo, First Blood Part 2, but the First Omen Part 2, it'd be like very similar to First Blood Part 2. The First Omen Part 2, but I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if this movie did well financially or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did, that they put out the First Omen Part 2 and Part 3. That'd be funny. But, and I think this movie's strong enough where I'd actually be excited for the First Omen Part 2, but that'd be a funny title. It's a long road, and it's hard as hell. But I can go as high as 3.5 stars out of 4 stars, amazingly enough, for the First Omen. And style for me is a huge part of movies. Movies are a visual and audio medium, after all, and what you do with the visuals and the audio, to me, is very important. In a lot of cases, even more important than necessarily the substance. Like style over substance. I'm not saying style over substance, but in this case, I think the substance is relatively well done, but the style, the way that this movie is conceived, or is executed, shot and executed and stuff, I think is really great. And incidentally, there's like, I'm not a big fan of strobes. I don't have seizures, but I feel like, God, if I see enough strobes, I might. And it's just like, I'm not a big fan of strobes, and it's interesting how, like, every now and then, like, there's just, like, for no frickin' reason, like, strobes in this movie, and it's like, I was just kind of, like, thinking, that's kind of stupid, but it's like, you know what, that actually, I think the strobe here, or, when it's utilized for the most part in this movie, is actually well suited to the scenes or whatever. So I'm like, yeah, strobe, there's actually no reason for there to be a strobe in this scene, but that actually kind of works. So very surprised with the First Omen, and fingers crossed that there will be a First Omen Part 2. It'd be nice to see the continuing adventures of the chick from the First Omen, and well, I can't say more without spoiling it, but it was interesting how the movie ended, and it did remind me of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, in a way. And if you've seen the movie, you'll know probably what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's just like, Anyway, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, very impressed with the First Omen. Maybe part of the reason why liked it so much is because I don't really care about the Omen movies and didn't have any expectations. But I think that aside, I just think, especially for a movie that came out in 2024, I think it was a rare situation where it was actually like, wow, that's like really stylized in a cool like 60s, 70s Roman Polanski way, and a little bit of Exorcist 3 in there. Like, I can dig the First Omen, and I definitely do. So I guess that'll about do it for my review. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.